Welcome back to another episode of Satisfactory, currently playing version update 8, and we are just going through building some ridiculous mega factories as we're waiting for the release of 1.0, which is coming on September 10th. So last time we finished all of the iron. I had already gone through and recorded a whole pile of footage on being able to do I was gathering up all the oil, and I'm sorry, but dealing with fluids in this game is an absolute frustrating nightmare. I was going to try to bring all the oil back to this location here, just to the other side of all of this iron, and it was fighting me nonstop. I was just having constant flow issues. So I'm shifting a little bit. I'm going to convert all the oil to fuel right where the extractors are. And then from there, I'm going to gather up all of the, polymer resin. I'm going to bring all the polymer resin back here to be able to make all the plastic and rubber that we're going to need. Because we do have all this space here that we can use all the water. We're just going to add more. We've already got over 1,500 kilometers of Mark V conveyors in here. We're just going to add more conveyors. And we're just going to move more product. And we're going to see how well I can tank this gameplay with the amount of conveyors and amount of products we're going to be moving. But for now, we need to make some fuel because we're getting short on power. If we look on my power generation, I'm using 123 gigawatts of the 155 gigawatts that I'm making right now. So before we dive into making all the copper and all the caterium and all the sandstone into concrete, I'm going to need some more power. So the best place to do that, let's grab all the oil. So sit back, relax, and let's jump into it. Okay, so I'm loading up on the screen here right now. This is a map of all of the oil nodes that are on the game. So we're going to cluster up these oil nodes, and we're going to work with them as many as it's kind of available in that clustered area. We're going to work with those, and we're going to take all of the crude oil there, and we're going to turn it directly into fluid, which is going to leave us polymer resin left over, and that polymer resin is what we're going to end up using for plastic and rubber. So let's head off to our first cluster. It's just on the north edge of the map here, and we're going to be starting with that to be able to get our first oil productions up and running. At the first 3 nodes all set up here, there was 2 impure nodes and a normal node. We've got them all hooked up. They are extracted at 250%. We got them overclocked so that we're getting one full line of 600 cubic meters of oil. And then the oil is running down. We've got it set up to a fluid buffer that we've got set up here to be able to, kind of pool any oil that we want to, as I was getting things built and whatnot, so that our lines here would never starve for any fluid getting inputted into them. The other thing too is it is recommended to make sure you're feeding from top to bottom with your fuel or with your fluids and whatnot, just to help with fluid slosh. So we're taking this line, it runs along here, and then we're going up to a top feeder line that we're then dropping in and feeding on each end, kind of splitting it off, and then it goes into each one of these refineries. And they are now all flowing properly. Everything seems to be working pretty good. Now I have just turned this on. I don't know how well it's producing yet. We're going to keep an eye on it to make sure that our oil flow and everything is staying consistent. Output side, we've got all of the polymer resin is all running down on a Mark V conveyor, and it is getting dumped into an awesome sink way off into the distance there, just until we have something figured out as to what we're going to do with that polymer resin. I know we're going to be making some of it into plastic and some of it into rubber, and then probably continuing to dump some into awesome sinks. From these 10 refineries we've got set up here, we're making 400 cubic meters of fuel coming out of there. We have them run into 14 generators, 13 of which are running at 250%, and one is running at 83.3%, giving us a total of 400 cubic meters of fuel being consumed off of these generators. Of course, we've got the same type of distribution set up where we're bringing it up above the input of the generators. We're basically filling this line, and then it drops down, and it basically acts as a little fluid buffer that's in place here, providing all of the fuel to our generators. So what are we getting out of that? This one oil line is netting us between 4 and 5 gigawatts of power. Sorry, gross 4 to 5 gigawatts of power. And we're consuming about 1 gigawatt worth of power to be able to make all of this. So our net is between 4 and 5. All in all, this is way more simple. Rather than trying to... My previous attempt at this is I had actually got all of the oil extractors done. And I got them all feeding in. And all of them were coming to this far edge out here. And actually, I think it was all over this way. I brought all of the oil together, and we were just constantly dealing with starving fuel lines and starving oil lines. And things weren't keeping up, and it would constantly shut off and turn back on. Well, now things seem to be just consistently flowing because I'm not trying to push this oil halfway across the map to be able to get it to what we needed to do. So let's get on to the next line of oil. We'll just we'll keep going. Let's look at the image here. I've got the image up on the map here. You can have a look. We finished these for the first three that are basically the northeast side. Now we're going to continue with the rest of that big cluster on the north edge, kind of northwest side. Finally finished all the oil nodes. We have everything all being produced into polymer resin. So we got all this polymer resin we've got coming through. What do we got? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 full lines of 780 items per minute. And then we have one line that I believe is like 390 items per minute. Polymer resin is what we are making from all the oil nodes. And now it's time to take this polymer resin here, and we're going to convert this into plastic and rubber. We'll do a nice equal balance of it. But before we do that, let's check out each of our oil nodes that we've got throughout the map and see how everything looks with it. So this is our first set of oil nodes that come in to give us a full line of 600 cubic meters of oil per minute into 10 refineries and then into 14 fuel generators. And our polymer resin ends up shooting off to a conveyor system that heads off into that direction. We have our second production line here, taking another 600 cubic meters of oil and cranking it out into additional power and polymer resin. Then we have our third and fourth production lines over here that are doing the exact same thing. In case my goal was to make sure that I could at least get my lines up to 600 cubic meters of oil per minute. It didn't work out in that case all the time. Oh, hey, that's third and fourth, and then our fifth one is right here. And then this one over here is one of the lines that I couldn't get up to 600 cubic meters. And so this is our sixth little production line that's all feeding polymer resin back over to that little area over there. And this is producing our, we've got oil getting used up, we've got fuel getting used up, we got power getting generated, and we've got polymer resin getting made. So that pretty much takes care of everything that's along this coastline. Next, we've got kind of this middle section of the map. We'll go check out those. All right, here's our next little cluster of oil nodes we've got over here. And this one here, again, 2 nodes end up working out to be able to make 600 cubic meters. One node is just a partial. So we've got like a half production line here and then a full production line here. And then we combined it all into a whole pile of fuel generators. And this is in this area right here on the map. And now we head over this way to get to our next group. All right, here's our next little cluster. We've got some more oil nodes out here that work out to 2 full lines of 600 cubic meters. So we got the oil coming in. We got our polymer resin being made. We're combining them here and then shooting that line. I think it works out to about 600 items per minute. They're heading back to where we're gathering all the polymer resin. And then we got 2 full lines here that are making our power. And on the map, we're located right here in this central little river basin that's kind of along through here. And I think we have another node that's just kind of right here where the pointer is. And let's go check that out. Okay, so this one's a little bit more of a unique oil situation that's right here, because this one here is one of the nodes where you've got to use a oil well pressurizer that basically fracks the oil out of the ground, and then you've got these resource well extractors that are set up here to be able to pull our fluid products out. And then of course we do have another one that's a little partial line that's over here. So a little bit different of a setup here, but it generally functions along the same lines as the regular oil nodes. We have, accumulators here. We've got these fluid buffers in place so that we get a constant, steady flow of oil, so that it doesn't fluctuate too much. And then we have our fuel production and our polymer resin all going back over to our plastic and rubber future assembly area. Now we're heading off into this direction over here to check out. There's another one of these pressurized oil nodes that are over there. All right, so here's our other resource well pressurizer that's sitting here, basically fracking away and producing our oil. We got the oil extractors, the resource well extractors set up here. And all of this oil is being gathered up into this little production line that is over here, doing the exact same thing. However, this one's not making up. I think this is about 450 cubic meters of oil is what we're getting out of this line. It wasn't quite enough to make a full line, so that's why we've got these nerfed a little bit, so they're not making as much fuel, and we don't have as many generators here that are producing our power generation off this. Next is our node over here in the crater. Okay, we're down in the little crater area over here on the map, right down in here. And there's a bunch of actually really good oil nodes that are kind of tucked in to this hillside that's here. And we get like almost 5 full production lines out of here of power generation of 600 cubic meters. There's only one little partial line that we're dealing with here. All the rest of these are full lines. And all of our polymer resin, of course, is going up, being shot over to our main area for the plastic and rubber. But this is actually a really great spot if you are looking to dive into plastic and rubbers and oil and power generation and stuff. There's so much you can do in this area. It's fantastic. Finally, we have one more cluster, and of course it's on this hide the menu. It's over on the far side of the map up here. So actually I think it's more right around this area. So we're going to go check that out. And here we are coming into our last cluster of oil nodes that are out here. I like how compact these end up working. So this area here actually works out to 3 full lines of 600 cubic meters of oil. And look how compact this is to be able to take all 3 of those lines. We're converting it into fuel and polymer resin, and we're generating our power in here. This is so tight. Like this just works out fantastic. All in all, we are generating, if we look at this here, we are generating about 100 gigawatts more now than what we were doing before we did all this. Now, keep in mind, we are consuming a little bit more power to get that. I think we net about 80 gigawatts of power so far. But we haven't touched the plastic and rubber manufacturing yet, so that's going to eat up some of that power consumption. But that's technically another production line, because now we're making as much rubber and as much plastic as we can do. So that's kind of maybe outside the scope. We're making as much net power now based off of the oil. Now, with that said, we were making 151 gigawatts off of coal generation, and now we're making 100 gigawatts off of oil power, which is actually kind of ridiculous. Like, you'd think that the next phase up, me personally, I think there should be either more oil nodes available, or the power generated through oil manufacturing should be net more power. Because, I mean, it's supposed to be like a progression through the game. You should be able to make more power and have that available to you when you've moved to that next step of oil production versus coal generation. And then you get more power from nuclear generation. So just a little food for thought. Now we're going to dive into, I'm going to quickly slap together our plastic manufacturing and our rubber manufacturing. We're going to see what that looks like out here with all of our other processing that we're doing out here, all the iron ingot manufacturing that we're doing, and then we'll see what that looks like. Well, to finish things off with our polymer resin, we had all of our polymer resin that was over here that was getting dumped into Awesome Sinks. It's now all being fed back through, and we've got this conveyor bus going through over to this side, and we've got refineries all set up here that are converting our polymer resin into, we've got 4 full lines of polymer resin that are making plastic, and then we have 3 full lines of polymer resin that are making rubber, plus one, about a half line making rubber as well. Now, the rubber recipe, it does actually make more per 60 polymer resin versus the plastic. So this is making 20 plastic per minute per 60 polymer resin. And this is making, with the overclock that I've got it set up here, is 30 rubber for 60 polymer resin. However, we are consuming a lot more water, so there's a lot more water pumps that are set up on this. But all in all, this has now taken all of our oil nodes in the game. We're taking every little bit of oil, whether it's a standard oil node or a pressurized well that we've got set up, converting oil into fuel. That fuel's being used for generators, and then byproduct from that is our polymer resin, and then that polymer resin is being used to make all of our plastic and all of our rubber available that we can make in this game. So our total power generation now, if we have a look at a power pole here, is we're making about, it looks like 253, 254 gigawatts of power, and our total max possible consumption is 143 gigawatts, but we're sitting around that 140 because there's things getting turned on, things getting turned off kind of as we're working through this. So that is leaving us with about 110, 112 gigawatts of power that we can use for our next massive production line that we're going to be adding over here. So you can see our coal generation, all of our iron production, and then our plastic and rubber production at the end of all this. So I think the next thing I want to do is, what are we going to do with all these iron ingots? These are a lot of iron ingots that we're making because we're turning every single iron node into pure iron ingots. I wonder how many screws we can make out of that. Guess we'll just have to wait and see.